Tansei, welcome back to Métis Minute, your source for Métis news in Region 7. Welcome back to Métis Minute. I am your host, Samantha Loney. And today we are continuing coverage of a Wasaga Beach City Council meeting where they were discussing development within the municipality. If you watched our episode of Métis Minute last week, you would have seen the Wasaga Beach City Council discussing the development of a subdivision. We are here to bring you more coverage of development areas within the municipality. The municipality is currently looking at amending a bylaw for a residential area to become a campground. Now, as you may have guessed, some of the citizens within Wasaga Beach, especially those who currently live in those affordable housing properties, are a little upset with this potential bylaw amendment. During the City Council, we heard reports from staff, the developers, and some citizens who expressed their concerns with this proposed amendment.
As you can see on the screen before you, the applicant that has submitted the application is William Barnes and Patricia Jago. The agent is Michael Benner, and Mr. Benner is in attendance today to represent the applicant. The application before you is proposed zoning bylaw amendment, town file number Z00724. This is just an overview of the staff presentation this morning. As you can see, staff will first speak to the purpose of the public meeting. This will be followed by an overview of the planning application process. Staff will then introduce the application and present the subject lands and the proposed development. So the purpose of the public meeting, so a public meeting is required under the Planning Act for a zoning bylaw amendment application. Town planning staff are introducing the applicant's proposal to council and the general public. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to share written comments and make oral submissions to council. So this slide just depicts the planning application process to date with regards to the application. As you can see on the screen, the application was received by planning staff. The application was deemed complete, and a notice of complete application and public meeting were circulated. We are now here at the public meeting. Moving forward, there will be a staff and agency review of the application. There will be a staff recommendation to council, and ultimately a council decision, and this application is subject to an appeal period. So in terms of the proposal, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application submission is intended to facilitate a campground commercial development, and this development consists of a trailer and tent park use with 40 individual tent and trailer sites. And the applicant's agent will be providing further details in this regard in their presentation to follow. And it's noted that the applicant has indicated that they are intending to submit an application for site plan control at a later date. So in terms of the location that is subject to the application, the subject lands are municipally addressed as 101 Cedar Grove Parkway. The total lot area is approximately 29,623 square meters. The lot frontage is approximately 85 meters along Cedar Grove Parkway. The surrounding uses consist of campground commercial to the north, district commercial to the south, residential to the east, a vacant abutting lot to the west, as well as additional residential uses to the west. So the lands are designated settlement as per the County of Simcoe official plan. The existing Town of Wasaga Beach official plan land use designation is campground commercial, and that's indicated in pink on the map. The surrounding Town of Wasaga Beach official plan land use designations consist of residential, as indicated in white, campground commercial indicated in pink, district commercial in red, and local commercial, which is indicated in the dark red color. So the lands are presently zoned residential modular home, the abbreviation being RM. The permitted uses include, but are not limited to, a modular/mobile home park. The surrounding zones are residential type 1, campground commercial, development, district commercial, and local commercial. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the existing residential modular zone to a campground commercial exception zone. The campground commercial exception zone would establish site-specific zone provisions to facilitate the development of the proposed trailer and tent park use. And once again, the applicant's presentation is to follow, and the applicant will be providing further details in that regard. In summary, again, this is a public meeting that is required by the Planning Act. Town planning staff are presenting the applicant's proposal. A detailed review of the application is ongoing, but not yet completed. Staff will be forwarding all comments received to council, and a recommendation report will ultimately be brought forward in front of council at a later date. So thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. Should anyone have any questions, the planning department email is on the screen, and this is a link to the submission materials that have been submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cameron. We'll now move on to the presentation by the applicant or their agent, and I believe it's Mr. Michael Banner from Banner and Company is here today. Good morning, Michael. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mayor and Council and staff. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. My name is Michael Benner. I am a land use planner and representing the Barnes family in this proposed rezoning application. I know my colleague, Mr. Watt, already kind of went over a lot of the details of the application, so I'll try to make my presentation a bit briefer in the interest of time. In terms of background, the Cedar Grove's Campground is located obviously within the town of Wasaga Beach and has been operated by the Barnes family since the 1940s. The property actually is comprised of 4 separate parcels. There's 102 Cedar Parkway and 100 Cedar Grove Parkway are seasonal campground uses. 101 Cedar Grove Parkway is the subject of this application, and it has present use as residential modular homes. There's a 4th parcel immediately abutting 101 Cedar Grove Parkway, and it's vacant land right now. That's actually where the campground signage is, right on Cedar Grove Parkway. The entire property is serviced with municipal sewer and water and stormwater systems. 101 Cedar Grove Parkway, as I mentioned, is the subject of this application. It's a 2.7 plus or minus hectare property, and it's occupied by approximately 47 modular homes on a loop private laneway. All sites are fully serviced, and some sites are now vacant. This includes a retail store and a detached residence right on the kind of the north edge of the property. In terms of land use policies, I'll go over this quickly. The Wasaga Beach official plan actually designates the subject lands for campground commercial uses. And those uses include tent and travel trailers, recreational motorhomes, park model trailers, and other structures that support that campground use. From a zoning perspective, the subject lands are presently zoned residential modular homes to recognize the existing use. The rest of the campground is actually zoned commercial campground and development. The permitted uses in the residential multiple zone include modular and mobile homes, and supportive non-residential uses such as administrative uses and commercial uses. The proposal is to establish over time a campground commercial use similar to the uses already located on 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway. So the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw is to essentially establish a campground commercial use consisting of trailer and tent park uses, including existing detached accessory dwelling unit and a detached accessory retail store. In terms of the details of the amendment, we're actually looking for a site-specific amendment to recognize not only the commercial campground uses, but also the reduced lot area, and to permit the detached, as opposed to attached, accessory retail store use. And that will provide some compliance with the existing uses in terms of the detached retail use on the property. The intent is to transition into this use once and if the zoning is approved over time. As the residential modular uses cease to exist, they'll transition into a more of a seasonal tent and trailer park, very similar to what we see on the rest of the campground property. In terms of project timelines, a little bit here. The project started with a pre-consultation meeting in May of 2023. The zoning amendment was applied for in February of this year, with a notice of complete application being sent out in May. Notice of the public meeting was provided on July 4th, and here we are today at the public meeting. And essentially that's the presentation. I wanted to keep it fairly short, simple, certainly open to any questions or comments that council may have at this point.
Thank you very much, Michael. All right, we'll now move on to question comments by the public, and the town will ask the public to speak if they wish to provide any comment in favor or opposition to the proposed development. To Deputy Clerk, have we any members of the public registered in advance to make oral submissions at today's virtual public meeting?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We do not have anyone registered virtually. We do have a number in person.
All right, if there's no one virtually, I'll then ask you to carry on. Do we have a list of these folks?
Thank you, Your Worship. The first one on the agenda is Tracy Camino. She does have a presentation. She'll be speaking on behalf of Davin Camino, and Pam Stevens will be taking on the last part of the presentation.
All right, we'll ask those folks to come forward.
Actually, I'm going to be speaking. Tracy's here. Thank you.
Good morning, Davin.
Nice to see you today. Nice to be here. Privileged to be here in front of you. I do want to take a moment, though, to thank Barbara and Nicole for helping me navigate through some of the guidelines for today's meeting. So I do appreciate the help there.
Oh, we appreciate that, Davin. It's great to hear how great our staff are, so thank you.
Absolutely. Today, I do want to give you a little preamble. Today's presentation, I think you can take almost every screen that we present. Tracy and I tried to ensure that there was some connection to either the Wasaga Beach official plan, the newly created historic West Wasaga secondary plan, the Provincial Planning Act, and as we know, on April 12th of 2024, the federal budget 2024 contained the new Canada Housing Plan, and it can be all related to either one of those directly or indirectly. So thank you very much, and if you give me the green light, I'll get going. Is this my clicker? Oh, okay, sorry. That one. All right, thank you. Presentation to Wasaga Beach Special Council meeting today, and again, thank you very much. Here's screen. I'm going to have to go back and forth a little bit with my glasses. So here we have a screen. This, again, just information. It was back in June, on the left side, actually, sorry. I'm going to slow down a little bit. The writing on the right, on the left side, is actually notice of an eviction that we had been facing and aren't facing. And I just wanted to make a connection here with the deputation given by fellow residents Pam and Claire last June. And it talked about a first eviction that we were looking at from the landlord and tenant board. That, in turn, had been thrown out. I don't know if we've had an opportunity to update you with that. That, in turn, was thrown out. Mainly, lack of permits, zoning permits, but the adjudicator made a special point of the errors and the omissions on the application was one of the highlighted points in why it was tossed out. As noted, the landlord's eviction applications attached, and they still require permits. It's anticipation that we probably get the same result, and actually at this time, hearings have been scheduled, okay? Again, errors and omission in the application was a real main stickling point. Purpose of the public meeting. Again, it's part of the Wasaga. It is a requirement, statutory requirement under the Planning Act for zoning bylaw amendments. And I just want to point out a couple of things here. How was this public meeting communicated? I'm going to go through a couple of slides here. And based on observation, there were only 3 signs posted announcing this public meeting: date, time, and location. On the screen is public notice number 1. It's attached to, and can only be seen by people driving eastbound. The data is so low to the ground, it's virtually inaccessible to a person with a disability to see. Sign number 2 can only be seen by somebody going westbound and is hidden behind a bush. This one here is, well, we'll look. Public notice number 3, placed on an exit of the west roundabout. And I think everybody in the room has probably gone through that roundabout. By the time you hit this sign, you're going 40 to 60 kilometers. The sign itself is placed 2 feet below the road grade. Vital information is obscured by weeds, and this picture was taken about 2 weeks ago. Absolutely inaccessible to a person with a disability. And I have to really, working with the federal government for 20 years, looking after the Opportunities Fund for people with disability, the first thing that came to mind was, how would a person in a wheelchair ever have access to that? Agenda and minutes. Online access to these notices and public notices. Wasaga website noted this as a special council meeting, which appears to conflict with today's public meeting. There's no active links that would indicate these are one and the same. And how does the public using the website make the important connection that this special council meeting is a public meeting to review this important zoning bylaw amendment? The Wasaga notices page, which I personally signed up for email notifications, still hasn't been updated, not even with the completed application being posted. Wasaga bylaw as well, 2021-47 is the Wasaga's bylaw on proper notice periods. It should be 14 days. Unfortunately, we had Friday morning to find out about this agenda. The majority of here are residents of Wasaga Beach, owners of an affordable home located on the lands included in this application. We pay Wasaga Beach property taxes adjusted accordingly to the Wasaga's mill rate. We pay our hydro bill directly to this town. We are taxpayers, citizens of Wasaga, some of whom lived here for over 40 years. Personally speaking, Tracy and I moved up in 2012. We have all invested in our home, many in planning for retirement, and more importantly, in our and this community's future. Just a quick snapshot. One, just an example of an affordable home that they want to demolish without compensation, by the way. They just want us to leave. As per notice posted, the land in question is currently zoned residential module home. Proposed use is campground commercial. For those who may not be aware, it was a beautiful presentation by Mr. Benner here, but one thing that was missed out is the people. There's people here. For those who may not be aware, the lands identified for rezoning are occupied. 47 affordable homes, 70-plus residents consisting of low-income seniors, single-parent families, and people with disabilities. And I'll tell you something, the negative impact, because all this time, for 3 years, we have been living there with the landlord under the assumption that this is a done deal, have created 12 affordable vacant homes. They've been vacant for over 2 years. We haven't been able to sell our homes because of this gray cloud, black cloud hanging over us, evictions, bylaw zoning changes. 2 years now, we're going to fight the next second eviction. Current land use contravenes current zoning use of RM. At the time of writing, and sorry, it's a little bit, I can't zoom into the little spot there. I hope everybody can see, maybe a little red dashes. At the time of writing this, on the land that is in this proposal, there were 16 seasonal trailers placed there. Seasonal fees range anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000. And I have a question. We pay taxes based on MPAC assessment. If they're on residential modular land, have they? As a result, surely we have to kind of seriously question why we're here. It will be evident, again, from the following pictures, that an approval decision appears to have been made with regards to rezoning. Otherwise, the town would have taken action and not allowed the applicant to continuously convert this land and use it as campground commercial before consultations, approvals, or planning process has taken place. This is known as creeping incrementality. I think we all understand. With one that goes out, an affordable home gets demolished without some type of a plan to recoup, restore, rebuild, you're going to end up with a campground inside of an RM zone. 12 vacant homes are out there. They're going to apply for 12 demolition tickets, start demoling all the homes. Should be increasing affordable homes, not decreasing. I'm going to go through one side. Part of the problem, too, here's a sign. Cedar Grove Park, all future sites, seasonal use only, May to October, as of January 2024. This sign indicates that the lands included in this application have already been approved. Move towards the development of a seasonal campground. Sign is also placed on a utility pole, giving the impression of authenticity. In the background, I just thought I'd take a quick shot of a classic Airstream trailer that's on the land right now. Okay. A couple of things with this screen. Sign permit, I don't know. Sign location, your bylaw 5.9 with regards to signs. No tree, no hydro pole, no town pole without the permission of the town. Mix minimum standards. I mean, again, everything we can tie into the Planning Act. We're talking about information sharing here. We're talking about what they're doing. Site plan agreement will be definitely attached to the Planning Act if this sign is accurate. Your 15.3 under your signs bylaw, unlawful signs, gives the town the power to remove these signs immediately at the cost of the landlord. I personally identified this sign a month ago, and it still sits there. Now, you're dealing with a lot of seniors here where intimidation can play a real role. People are getting sick, losing sleep, appetite's gone. When you think that that's real, a trailer that's on the land, they want to talk about pullout. Doesn't look like a pullout to me. It's been there for 2 years. Another example, these folks have been here for 4 years. And yes, they even put tents. We even have tents there. I heard Cameron speak on the topic of a complete application, and I understand that it's not yet completed. However, I do want to point out a few things, and I want to circle back to the Landlord and Tenant Board's adjudicator, who stressed omissions and errors and non-disclosure was a big deal. On this screen right here, you'll see question number 3, existing land uses and zoning. Describe, okay, 1940, describe the existing uses on the subject land, modular homes. I don't see any mention of 16 seasonal trailers on this land. I don't see all the money that's coming in on this land. I also understand if you do a quick Google map search of this property, there's a small business there called Ford's Portable Sawmill. We always wondered why the wood gets chopped up, bagged, and for firewood and sold to the public. Maybe there's another existing activity on this land. Question number there highlighted, is subject land within an area, zoning conditions apply? Response, no. I'm not sure why we're here then, if the answer is no. Of course there's a zoning that applies to this land. If we get to the actual application, which I don't have on screen, sorry, but there is a question there. Number 5, existing and proposed structures. They listed 47 modular homes with no details. I mean, there should be 47 houses here listed with statistics, size, just so that you know that this proposal actually is, what it's doing is the demolishment of about 50,000 square feet of living space. 50,000 square feet of living space. They put down existing 47 modular homes. I'm glad I'm here to actually explain this. I'd be afraid if I wasn't. The official plan on the next screen. Oh, I'm sorry, can I go backwards here? Oh, this one? Yeah. The official plan. We do want to know how it really connects with the official plan. We'd like to know how it connects with the West Wasaga secondary plan, where some of our tenants, residents here, participated in all 3 sessions. I don't see a connection there. I don't see a real connection to the Provincial Planning Act. And I certainly don't see a connection to the new Canada Housing Plan. For the past 4 years, the applicant landlord has been illegally using 1/3 of the zone residential module land and allowed to operate and use as a campground commercial, despite no approved zoning change. They also failed to disclose on their application. This has led to many situations that leave residents feeling intimidated and we question our future here in Wasaga. And I'll give you a few examples of what it's like to live when the landlord believes something is going to happen. We identified some trees that needed to be come down. Bylaw came out, they said, yeah, please have these taken down. Because they think an approval of a zoning change is going to be okay. This is what we look at every day. This is their job. However, the applicant, assuming zoning amendment will be approved, has decided to leave the work unfinished or not completed at all. I mean, I don't know about you, but this is not the view that I came here to look at. And keep in mind, this is at what we call the gateway to West Wasaga. I mean, that circle, the roundabout there, it's the front door to us. Demolition of an existing modular home. There it is. These 2 pictures are a comparison of about 10 days. This is a town-approved permit that for whatever reason wasn't posted and we can't seem to see it. Food for thought. For every home that gets demolished without a plan to restore it, we're going to be in trouble with housing. We already are. Landlord hasn't displayed the proper demolition permit, and it appears not to be following the Wasaga Beach demolition safety checklist because of the fact that they've allowed kids and campers to be on the land. What do you think they do with a place like this? They're scavenging. Unfortunately, we had to chase kids away for throwing rocks through the windows. We have pink insulation flying around all over the road. Pink insulation. And now it's going on 3 weeks. Let alone the rain that we've had. You know what rain does to pink insulation. I'm going to show you something here. This is a seasonal camper that came, stayed 3 years, and then had to leave. So he came, made it beautiful. Looks great. Look at what we had to look at 4 months after he left. Have we talked to bylaw? Well, we certainly did day one. Here's a letter actually from bylaw. And the thing that I think is really interesting with this is I have been working, and I will say that Rachel has been very accommodating, spoken to her many times. In fact, the previous picture was one that I alerted her to almost 4 years ago. And she has been very upfront, and she's explained that the only thing that the bylaw can do is educate the property and trailer owners not to do it, and to encourage voluntary compliance. Bylaw enforcement based on voluntary compliance. Please don't do that. I'm not sure exactly how voluntary compliance works, but as I stand here, I just kind of dawned on me that we have bylaw staff here, we have the landlord here. Could we see a demonstration of voluntary compliance and ask that these trailers be removed?
Davin, I'm assuming you want an answer now, or you want to wait till you're finished? Because I've got a whole
No,
list
it's
of...
okay, I can wait, Mayor. No, don't worry.
An awkward silence.
That's kind of meant to be.
I've got a list of questions as well, so if you want to complete them, we'll move forward from
So we
there.
obviously oppose this application. Based on earlier correspondence from the bylaw, we understand how hard it is for voluntary compliance, okay? With that in mind, though, is in fact not made a decision. If you haven't made a decision yet, we ask, if you can't get them to do it right away, we ask that this application be deferred, the public meeting be deferred, until time that the application and the land actually match up. These corrective, enforcement of these corrective measures, I think, are going to provide all invested parties with some confidence in that the planning, the engagement process currently in place are bound by transparency, accountability, and integrity. That's all we're looking for, and everything that we see just seems to be the opposite. Now I'm going to stop. It's good to see a lot of support. This is community. I should say, too, resident, synonymous with voter.
Thank you very much, Davin.
You're welcome.
For your very well prepared.
So I'm sorry for the interruption. Barbara, I know that Pam's slides coming up behind. When she comes up and she gets to those slides, if she doesn't work the clicker, I'll give her a hand. Okay. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you, Davin. I'm a little perplexed as to how to go about this at this point, because there's a lot of questions in Davin's presentation here, and I'm sure Council has a lot of questions from that presentation. We also understand the rules around the public meeting and the process. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on to the next presenter. When the presenters are completed, I'm going to look to staff. Would you rather me carry on and get through all the presentations? I know you guys are writing fearlessly as well. And then we'll attempt to answer all these questions today to the best of our ability. Or do you want to go one presenter at a time? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe we'll listen to the presenters from the gallery, and then we can address staff.
So I'm just going to be asked, and I know we always are, but we want to be extra diligent here. This is a very touchy subject and an important subject. So I want to make sure that these folks leave here today with as many answers as we can possibly give them today. We will get back to you with answers in the future, and I'm sure that Council's got some things to think about, and we'll have a lot of questions at this table before this day is out as well. So looks like you should hang tight. I hope you all packed a lunch. We could be here a while. Next presenter, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pam Stevens.
Come on up together, ladies. That's fine. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Mayor, council members, the planning department and staff, neighbors, friends, and all participants. My name is Claire Chasson.
And good morning, my name is Pam Stevens.
We are here today to object to the application for zoning bylaw amendment number Z007-24 to rezone 101 Cedar Grove Parkway from an RM residential modular zoning bylaw to a CC campground commercial zoning bylaw. This is an extremely serious and sensitive matter.
We've been given permission to speak together by Barbara King. We intend to speak only for about 10 minutes. Although we have additional arguments, we're going to focus just on our main objections. Also, having no idea what was the comments were going to be coming before us, or preceding us rather, we may be somewhat repetitive and apologize in advance. Any questions that we pose are only meant to be rhetorical and to express an opinion or comment. We're not expecting an answer. Today we're here briefly to comment on the justification report prepared for the applicant by Benner and Company in support of rezoning. We will speak about a few provisional requirements for campground commercial from the Town of Wasaga Beach Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2003-60. We will introduce the amendments to Bill 97 made by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Paul Calandra. And lastly, we will address Schedule A1 Land Use Plan from the current official plan of Wasaga Beach 2003-60. Claire, take it away.
To better understand the lands involved and clarify for council and participants, the north portion, 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway, are one and the same and zoned campground commercial, and are presently occupied by approximately 150 park model trailers and 5 or 6 campsites. To clarify, a park model trailer remains on site all year and is available for seasonal use only. The south portion, 101 Cedar Grove Parkway, is zoned residential modular and is the subject land of this application. It is occupied by 47 full-time residential rental units owned by the tenants who pay property taxes and all utilities. 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway are separated from 101 Cedar Grove Parkway by a 2-lane paved municipal road. We will begin by responding to the justification report. The applicant prepared a justification report to support the rezoning. It loosely connects the provincial policy statement concerning implementations and regulations for land use planning in sections 1.1.3 through 1.4 and the many subsections therein to support the application for rezoning. At this time, we will not comment on all the policies indicated by the justification report, except to say that the combined terms housing, residential, housing options, residence, affordable housing, and homelessness plans are used 16 times. Not once is a seasonal travel trailer and tent park mentioned.
Not once.
On page 3 of the report, it states, to repurpose 101 Cedar Grove Parkway to a campground use for seasonal travel trailers and tents, similar to the existing uses found at 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway. As mentioned earlier, 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway is occupied by approximately 150 park model trailers and only 5 or 6 campsites. Unless the applicant intention is to develop the new campsite area with park model trailers, the comparison of similar uses is completely dissimilar. The applicant's site plan application allows only 110 square meters per trailer and tent site, as required by the zoning provisions. Park model trailers required, as required by the zoning provisions, park model trailers require 325 square meters per site. Therefore, no park model trailers would be permitted. As proof of bad faith, the applicant has already situated 16 park model trailers on 101 Cedar Grove Parkway that is currently zoned residential modular and is
Sorry,
not...
ladies, one sec. Sounds like the ice cream truck is coming.
Yeah, we're going to repeat this, Claire.
Okay.
So, just say,
I've been there.
let's just go from this.
Yeah, okay.
We're good to go? All right. I'm not here in case they ask.
Oh.
All right,
Just
go
go
ahead,
back
ladies.
up a little bit.
Okay, so I'll start it. As proof of bad faith, the applicant has already situated 16 park model trailers on 101 Cedar Grove Parkway that is currently zoned residential modular and is not permitted in the zoning provisions. It should also be noted that seasonal campsites include tents, teardrop trailers, pop-ups, truck campers. They do not have washrooms. 101 Cedar Grove has no washrooms either, so you better bring a bucket.
Better bring a bucket. All right. There's many provisions in Section 16 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw for Campground Commercial that the applicant is required to comply with. In the rezoning application, the applicant is also applying for a site-specific zoning amendment for a reduced lot area. Provision 16.3.1 from the current zoning bylaw for campground commercial requires a minimum of 8 hectares. The total available hectares for 100, 101, and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway is approximately 5.66 hectares. Unfortunately, I think, Mr. Benner, you included the D zone, which is not permitted.
So, ladies, I'm going to ask you to direct
Sorry.
everything to us. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so the total available hectares for 100, 101, and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway is approximately 5.66 hectares, not 6.47 that was quoted in the justification report. Now, specifically, 8 hectares minus 5.66 hectares equals 2.34 hectares. The applicant is requesting a reduced lot area of 2.34 hectares. Now, if you're not familiar with hectares, here's some comparisons to put things in perspective. 2.34 hectares equates to 5.78 acres. That's almost 6 acres. If you're maybe not familiar with acres and you play tennis, that's over 90 tennis courts. 90 tennis courts. Or if you're a hockey fan, that's about 15 hockey rinks. Quoting from the 2024 Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Review, we, meaning the municipality of Wasaga Beach, will work to make sure that the zoning is not more permissive than the official plan. Can council justifiably permit a 29% reduction, a reduced lot size of 29%? Can council justifiably permit that to accommodate a campsite by removing residential tenants and families from their homes? On page 3, the applicant's application for rezoning, section 4 asks, purpose and reason why the rezoning has been requested. The applicant's response in part to that question, existing modular homes are being removed. I have a lot of problem with that phrase, are being removed. The applicant has not received any authorization to remove our mobile homes. And remove is just a euphemism for demolish. In a case management hearing with the Landlord and Tenant Board on December 18, 2023, The C's adjudicator, Patrick Shea, dismissed the application for demolition from the applicant and stated, "You can't demolish what you don't own." It may be the applicant's intent to remove and demolish, but that request with the Landlord and Tenant Board was denied. Despite this decision, the applicant has posted signs throughout 101 Cedar Grove Parkway that read, "All future sites are seasonally used only from May to October." These signs openly disregard that approval for seasonal use has not been granted by the municipality. I think you're up. I'll stop yelling.
This brings us to Bill 97, Helping Home Buyers, Protecting Tenants Act 2023, that received royal assent on June 8th, 2023. Bill 97 amends Section 99.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, giving the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing new regulation making authority to govern municipal powers that regulate the demolition and conversion of residential rental properties of 6 or more units. As well, the minister is proposing new regulations around municipal rental replacement bylaws that support residential rental properties that are being demolished to be replaced with residential rental properties. Some municipalities have already adopted this new bylaw proposal. How likely is it that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing will approve conversion and demolition of 47 residential units that house seniors, families with children, and some disabled persons? Does council feel confident to bring a motion before the minister seeking approval for the conversion and demolition of 47 residential rental properties to be replaced with a campsite?
So lastly, we will comment on the current official plan of Wasaga Beach and the comprehensive zoning bylaws. For clarification, zoning bylaws are one of the primary tools for implementing the official plan. So the official plan makes policies on one hand as to how our land in our community is used and designates the land. The municipality is responsible for the official plan and its approval from the County of Simcoe. I know you guys are all working super hard on that and trying to get that new official plan hopefully completed this year. Zoning bylaws that the municipality then takes divides the municipality into different land use zones guided by the official plan and applies appropriate provisions and regulations. Designating land use and zoning bylaws work hand in hand to provide direction and cohesion for land use. Simply put, you can't designate land use campground commercial and then zone it residential. To do so is a contravention of the Planning Act. Unfortunately, that's exactly what has happened. We know the zoning bylaw for 101 Cedar Grove residential modular is correct. Otherwise, of course, this application to rezone would be moot. The problem is Schedule A1 land use plan from the town of Wasaga Beach, current official plan, 2003-60. I think Davin prepared a little like a little map so we can clarify this. Thank you. Okay.
There we go. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, that's your first one, okay.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a blow-up of the municipality of Wasaga Beach. So this just focuses on our section. So you can see Georgian Bay at the top, and you can see the roundabout there. And then it's sort of, kind of looks like a duck, the pink part. So in the square pink part is Jelly Bean Park. We probably all know Jelly Bean, big campground. Then if we cross over Beechwood Road going north, it's all pink. That's where we are.
Andrew, could you help these ladies with the pointer?
Sorry?
I'm just going to get Andrew to show you how to use the
Okay.
pointer so as that people can see what you're speaking of,
Yeah,
ladies.
I didn't know there was a pointer.
All right, great.
So
Do you know how to do this?
you press it, right? Okay, so this area right here is where
We are.
our homes are.
Yeah. And show Jelly Bean?
And this is Jelly Bean.
So that's the official plan, And if we go over to pink here on the legend, it says campground commercial. So the official plan shows us the same as Jelly Bean as campground commercial. That's the designation. And then the two white areas are where all the white areas are where all the park model trailers are. That's 100 and 102. And if we go over to white, they've labeled it residential. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Oof.
So it's in fact incorrect.
Yeah, it's upside down.
So
Hang on. In May of 2024, it was identified that Schedule A1 land use plan incorrectly designates 101 Cedar Grove Parkway as campground commercial. On May 23rd, the Planning Department was advised of the discrepancy. As well, the Planning Department was advised of a discrepancy for 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway that designates them as residential. On May 27th, in a meeting with the Planning Department, it was again confirmed that land use designations for 100, 101, and 102 Cedar Grove were incorrect. On June 5th, in a meeting with the Planning Department, including Doug Switzer, myself, and Ian Lockwood from Tool Design Group, it was again confirmed that the official plan designation is incorrect. On June 10th, the CAO was informed and letters of the same were distributed to Council and the Planning Department. And it's kind of astonishing that this discrepancy in the official plan, 2003, has actually existed for 20 years. Further, the land use plan in Schedule C6, the proposed new official plan in its first draft, incorrectly identifies 100 and 102 Cedar Grove Parkway as neighborhood and 100 Cedar Grove Parkway as tourism commercial. The Planning Act 2003-60 requires municipal zoning bylaws conform with its official plan. Since the current designation for 101 Cedar Grove Parkway is campground commercial, and the zoning bylaw is residential, the current official plan of Wasaga Beach is in contravention of the Planning Act. The Planning Department has stated it intends to rectify the correct designation. The Planning Act Department has stated it intends to rectify the incorrect designation for Schedule C6 in the second draft of the official plan land use. So on the right-hand side, can you make it?
I am pressing, there we go.
There we go. So this is what it would look like if it was rectified. It would show us in white as neighborhood or residential. And to the north of us, it would show that the pink area for tourism commercial or campground commercial. Would the Planning Department like to comment at this time? Okay, all right, Claire.
Okay. So since it has been confirmed several times by the Planning Department that the designation of 101 Cedar Grove Parkway is residential and not campground commercial, the following provision from the current official plan applies. Section 7.3.14, new development of campground commercial uses shall be restricted to those areas designated as campground commercial. It goes to say existing campground commercial uses located in an area other than campground commercial should not be permitted to expand. The municipality's official plan requires approval from the County of Simcoe. We have contacted the County of Simcoe concerning this issue.
If the council approves the rezoning application, the residential tenants are prepared to appeal, and we are fully aware of the processes involved.
For 2 long years, the tenants have faced eviction, financial ruin, and homelessness. We have prepared and presented a deputation in June 2023 to Council. We have been required to prepare a case following an eviction notice from the applicant in July 2022 that was finally dismissed by the Landlord and Tenant Board December 18th, 2023. We have prepared and presented our case to Council in this public meeting today. It has been 2 long years of stress and anxiety. Living in limbo, unable to sell our homes, unable to commit to job opportunities, unable to risk monies for needed repairs, waiting for decisions that will affect the rest of our lives. We have suffered enough. Will the municipality's legacy be that they approved the rezoning application that effectively evicts over 50 residents and families when such a housing crisis exists and affordability and availability are out of reach?
The justification report supporting the rezoning concludes with, the rezoning proposal represents good planning and an opportunity to further tourism. I ask, does it really? At what cost? At what cost? Does conversion and demolition enhance government and public fairness? The necessary ingredients for good planning include flexibility, transparency, accountability, and legality. These 4 pillars of good government build trust. Based on the facts and the regulations we have presented, we are trusting Council to make the only acceptable decision. We are asking Council to reject the rezoning application and respectfully ask that a decision is forthcoming as soon as possible. Thank you, and thank you on behalf of all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much, ladies. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank your worship. Christina De Palma.
I don't see them. Good morning, Christina. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good morning. You as well. If I may begin.
You may. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Your Worship and distinguished members of Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter before you today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Christina De Palma, and I am the President and Senior Paralegal at De Palma & Associates Legal Services, a paralegal firm in our beautiful town of Wasaga Beach for the past 8 years. I'm here today to speak on behalf of several of the residents of Cedar Grove for whom I am representing in their defense against the landlord's eviction attempts. The landlord being Cedar Grove Park, the applicant in this zoning change application. Admittedly, in the course of my practice, I tend to represent more so on the side of the landlord, but I have never been more compelled in my 8 years of practice to advocate for tenants than I do in this case. If nothing else in this presentation moves you, I believe the side on which I represent should speak for itself. For context, Cedar Grove Park previously issued N13 eviction notices to my clients in early 2022. If you are not familiar, an N13 eviction notice is used when the landlord intends to demolish the rental unit, conduct significant renovations, or convert the property to non-residential use. These 2023 N13 notices were served under the grounds of demolition, and were served to the residents of Cedar Grove without the landlord obtaining proper permits or zoning changes. A court appearance at the Landlord and Tenant Board was subsequently conducted on December 18th, 2023, before Vice Chair of the LTB, Patrick Shea. During this appearance, numerous errors were made on the part of the landlord were noted, and the landlord ultimately decided to withdraw all of their eviction applications in an effort to avoid the applications being dismissed by the LTB. Only a few short months later, in March 2024, my clients were served with new N13 notices, this time under the grounds of conversion to non-residential use. Again, these notices were served without proper permits or zoning changes. On July 8th, 2024, Vice Chair Patrick Shea convened just one matter to a hearing so that he could canvass with the landlord's legal representative as to the state of the matter and the issuance of permits, as the LTB cannot unequivocally consider eviction in the absence of proper permits. Having not obtained the permits required, Vice Chair Shea canceled all upcoming eviction hearings for Cedar Grove residents and informed the landlord's legal representative that no hearings will be scheduled until she can confirm with him that proper permits have been obtained. The eviction of the residents of Cedar Grove Park are now stayed until you, as counsel for the town of Wasaga Beach, decide the fate of the landlord's rezoning application. I believe it is also vital to clarify that my clients own the modular homes in the park and merely rent the land on which their modular home is situated. I also note that many residents purchase their homes from the landlord directly. In my opinion, this sounds like a textbook case of have your cake and eat it too. The landlord made money on selling the residents their modular home, for which they are now attempting to have them all back. In my opinion, that's theft. These modular homes, I note, are modular. They are not mobile or trailers. These homes cannot simply be hooked up to a trailer hitch, pulled out of the park, and brought elsewhere. My client's only option, should they be evicted, would be to walk away from their homes and a significant financial investment. I'm sure you are wondering if they receive any compensation from the landlord under the Residential Tenancies Act in exchange for their eviction. The answer to that is yes, but don't let that fool you. Compensation is a mere $3,000, nowhere near the financial loss the residents will incur. I ask you, how is that just, fair, or reasonable? Lastly, and arguably most important for you to consider, and I believe I am best suited to present this argument to you, if you grant the rezoning application before you, the landlord will still have to pursue their eviction applications at the Landlord and Tenant Board, which I will still be arguing for to fail. Remember how I said these N13 notices were served under the grounds of conversion to non-residential use? Well, just because you permit the zoning change to commercial campground doesn't mean that satisfies non-residential use under the Residential Tenancies Act. Non-residential use requires the property to be used in a manner in which no occupant of the property will live in or reside in any manner, such as commercial or industrial use. This will not be the case for Cedar Grove Park, as the landlord intends to use the property for seasonal occupancy from May to October. This is still considered residential use under the Residential Tenancies Act, and there is significant case law in support of our position for the applications to fail under this argument. Should council require, I will be happy to provide a book of authorities of this case law for your review. In closing, I urge you to reject the application for rezoning, not only for the reasons I have explained, but in consideration of what it will cause to residents of our town. You will essentially be eliminating full-time, year-round, affordable housing for over 70 residents of this town. Residents that will have to leave their homes behind, leave their financial investment behind, and leave their community behind. And I ask, in doing so, where would they go? We are all well aware that we are currently in the midst of a housing crisis. Where will these people go? And quite frankly, I don't think doing so is what Wasaga Beach is or should be about. In that, I ask that you reject the rezoning application before you. And in doing so, I would like to put forward that that means that I will no longer have clients to represent at the Landlord and Tenant Board. And as a business owner in this town, that is probably not in my best interest. But I care more about the best interests of my clients than I do about myself and my business. So again, I ask you to reject the rezoning application before you today and consider what Wasaga Beach is really about, our community and our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Davina, would you still like to speak?
I think I might.
Okay, so Davina Johnson.
My name is Davina Johnston. I live at 10 Cedar Grove Park in Wasaga Beach.
Good morning, Davina.
And I apologize for my phone ringing.
That's fine.
It took me a while to get it shut off. Mine's more personal. My neighbors are more technical than I am, and they're very knowledgeable. I went to, on April 2009, looking for a permanent one. And I ended up at Cedar Grove Park, and I spoke to Pat Barnes, who was very gracious at the time. She encouraged me to purchase a trailer in her park. She told me about all the amenities that were available to me as a senior. I don't know if I was 69 or 70. I'm 84 now. As you can see, I had difficulty moving around. I have a very gracious neighbor that when it snows, he comes in and plows me out, because the landlord seems to have a tendency. and if I'm getting snarky, you'll have to stop me. I don't mean to be. It's just that will plow me in, so my neighbor comes around and plows us out. They talked about, what I noticed something about, there was sewage. They were providing sewage and water. Just caught the end of it. I paid for that. When I moved in April, or bought in April, I went to California for a couple of months. When I came back, I was told I owed $1,200 because the septic tank had been ripped up, and it was my responsibility. I found out later, I'm a bit slow sometimes, and only one person in the whole park complained, I'm not paying that. They went to the landlord and tenant, and they won. But it seemed like the rest of us were, I don't know, I don't want to I'm trying not to be nasty. Anyways, they talked about retail. I don't know what retail they're talking about, because the laundromat has not been in service for years, as far as I know. They have an ice cream parlor and a hot dog stand that is not serviced very often. So how are they going to take care of retail, another retail store? They don't take care of the property, the ones that have been emptied. Like, I realize running a camp must be difficult, and the one next door to me, the grounds have not been taken care of. They've been out for 2 years. So they don't take care of anything. I pay maintenance, but the maintenance seems to be picking up garbage and plowing in the snow. That's about all. They did have 2 bins at one time, one for, cans and bottles, and the other for, sorry, I lose my words at times. And I guess that, now I don't know if that was our fault, but all of a sudden they only got 1 bin, and that only goes out in May, and pulled back out, taken away in, what is it, August? No, it can't be August, September or something. Anyways, I know I'm rambling, but what bothered me was, when I saw when I moved in, there's an area that looks like a very nice park in front of my trailer. And I thought, oh, isn't that nice? But I found out they had trailers pulling in there, which didn't bother me. These people were very nice. I had no problems with it. The only time I had a problem was when I found out that they wanted to kick me out of my home that I paid for, that I paid renovations for, put a new roof on, and take me away from my neighbors. That I have 2 that feed me, but anyways, I have very good neighbors. And then I found out, so I went to the bylaws. I put in, at least personally went and put in 4 to 5 notices. I have them in my purse, complaining about the trailers. To tell you the truth, they didn't bother me because the people are very nice, but they were doing it illegally, and now they want to kick me out and give me $3,000. That didn't seem fair to me. And I've never seen any, well, that's not true. One of the gentlemen, I forget his name, I saw his name up on the screen, said that they were taking them to court, but I said, oh, what's the result? Well, I wasn't privy to that at all. And I thought that was very unfair. They're doing whatever they want to kick me out, and yet I'm not privy to a reply, an answer to what's happening. And this has been going on for years. They've been illegally parking for years. I've been there 14 years, and they've been doing this, and no one's done anything about it. I spoke to Mr. Watts, who was very helpful at times, and I only got hold of him because, as Davin said, the signs, you could barely read them. I had to get out of my car and go and look to see a telephone number that I could phone, which I did the same day. And he told me things were happening, what was happening. And I said, oh, I'm going to be notified, are we? He said, yes. And then later when I was in the superstore, he phoned me, and I thought it was very nice of him to say, no, we will not be notified. Only the barns will be notified. And that didn't seem very fair either. I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling. And I guess that's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. And Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anyone further?
Thank you, Your Worship. Richard Koopa?
Richard, are you here? Good morning, Richard. Welcome. The floor is yours.
I feel I'm before the judges, and because of that, I'm going to deal with it as a sidebar issue. I concur with the last 5 speakers and could add a lot to it. The sidebar issue is this. I purchased my home in 1965 in the township of Wasaga, and then it was annexed in 1974. Thought improvements would be made because in the Wasaga there was no bylaw controls, etc., and no personnel for non-compliance. Under the township zoning bylaws and bylaw control administrations did not exist until '74, when the towns had to have official plans. The owner of the particular lots, 101, 102, Brock's Beach, Cedar Grove Trailer Park, in 1974, expressed little and no respects for the municipal bylaws. And over the last 40 years, there's been many happenings that I've had with that ownership. And I'm not going to go into the details. Cedar Park, at that time when I bought my lot, I was 66 feet away from my southern neighbor, which was the Wasaga Beach Trailer Park, or Cedar Grove Trailer Park. Today, I am 48 feet away from that property. Because there have been no respects for bylaw of the town of Wasaga Beach. The trailer park owners expanded their commercial activity by encroaching on municipal beach parkland and the infrastructure of Cedar Grove Parkway, Shore Lane, and Inverkip, and the lands owned and the residential lands owned. 40 years of past happenings of non-compliance by the owners. Now, recently, it was confirmed by the lack of respect for the bylaw and bylaw officers. The town of Wasaga Beach bylaw officers was trying to get a solution, sort of common ground, with a complaint that had been put in more than a year ago. William 'The owner of this particular property expressed that he would not comply with the concerning bylaw and would not be complied with the route in which the zoning bylaw had suggested, zoning bylaw people had suggested. He then was told that the bylaw officer then told them that we're going to continue and we're going to do, and we're going to solve the solution, and we're going to charge you. Over the weekend, and it was mentioned in one of the other things, I witnessed trailers parked so close together you could hardly open the door to get into it. And this has been a big policy of the particular owners, of just loading up any piece of spare land they have. And yesterday, a couple of trail bikers following the trail of Wasaga Beach ended up on the municipal beach lands that are on the north side of the residential people on Shore Lane. And they were told they could not stay. So they carried their bikes and went down the shore next to where I am, explained their situation, and one neighbor said, because we have a private beach, you just leave those bicycles there and you enjoy the day. I did not witness who was the one that dictatorial told those people they had to get off of municipal lands. But this has been another one of the big problems of the Cedar Grove ownership. Read the subject matter, the rezoning. I believe it is premature. I believe that I can't answer, and I won't answer, and I won't ask questions on the sketch that was presented to me from the town. I do have confidence in the planning staff and the people that I have had to deal with. I've been collecting cards of people who work for the city, for the town. I haven't got a full deck yet, but I have been well handled, and I'm hoping that these particular things regarding what we've spoke on the last 5 speakers and what I'm doing will have some resolution. One of the points that was not brought up is that this particular development is going to be handled through the planning by site-specific notwithstanding. And I'd like someone now to explain that to me. What does that mean? No explanation? Nobody here?
Richard, we're going to listen to everybody, and then staff are making these, they're writing these questions down. We're going to answer all those questions we can at the very end.
Okay. Well, in my interpretation, and it's a KISS interpretation, is notwithstanding means that they will, the particular rezoning will be done, site-specific notwithstanding, and not have anything to do with the existing bylaws. And how can that be? That means it's spot zoning. And spot zoning is not good planning in a community. And I hope that the planning staff realize that they've got to have comprehensive study of the areas surrounding the particular project. I'll carry on. My concern is not the ownership of this particular rezoning. My concern by the owners. My concern is the mismanagement that has been gone on over the last 40 years on that sites that they own, that in some cases they have used property that is not zoned for the use of their trailers. And some of the properties are hoarded materials, aggregate, anything that they can take and put on that lot. The town took some road space of Cedar Grove Parkway and added it to 29 Sylvan Avenue. They had to rezone that, and they rezoned it R1, but did not deny what the lot was being used for was just a combination of poles, aggregate, material maintenance for their particular enterprise. I'm of opinion that the owners should not be involved in the management if this is approved, because their attitude of non-compliance, and that these particular site, if approved, be maintained 24 hours of proper expert trailer park managers, and that's my submission.
Thank you very much, Richard. Madam Deputy Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship.
I said thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anyone
I
else?
have one other point. As I said, I can't remark on the sketches and what has been provided, but I know under the plan, under the application, we should have a proper survey, complete, and we should have a site plan of what is going to be used on that lot. And when the planning staff gets that, I would like them to inform me so that I can go and preview it and then make my submission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thomas Busby.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yep, Thomas Busby.
Thomas?
Through Your Worship, I think he left.
All right, we'll move on then to the next individual wishing to speak.
Through Your Worship, Karen, are you still wishing to speak? No. Okay, thank you. Through Your Worship, we do not have any other speakers.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. For those members who are here, if you were not on the list and you wish to come forward to speak to this, please do so now and state your name and address for the record. I'll ask one more time. If there's anyone else who wishes to come forward and speak on this, please come forward. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Helen Boulanger. My husband and I reside at 1970 Shore Lane.
For the record, no relation to Councillor Boulanger?
Oh, I meant to say that. No relation. We don't even know each other.
Thank you. Your floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm noting that Campground Commercial includes the use of park model trailers, structural accommodations, such as motels, cabins, hotels, and similar uses. My question is, this being, according to the presentation, the last public meeting, if council approved this application and the landowners propose to come forward with motel or hotels, would there be any prior approval required?
Right, staff are writing that question down. We're going to get to those answers shortly.
That would certainly be a concern. The other thing is, Your Honor, it's just an antidote. We have, you might have guessed, grandchildren, one of whom is 3 years old. They were staying over and putting him to bed. I told him, you can't do something. When his mother came to pick him up, he said, Grandma said no. I urge you to say no to this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll ask the last time, if there's anyone else in the audience who wishes to come forward to speak to this matter, please do so. State your name and address for the record, please. All right, seeing no one further, I'm going to ask clarifying questions from members of council. Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. Thank you very much. The work that went into these presentations was significant, and I did receive some information that certainly I wasn't aware of prior, although I will say that I have had significant communication with a number of the residents from Cedar Park. But there are a number of things that are concerning, and I'm sure the mayor too will ask for clarification as to the non-compliance of the current zoning that has, if everything that was indicated is totally accurate, has gone on for many years. I've been through the park many times. I've certainly had discussions with town staff related to that. There seems to be significant non-compliance, not only within the RM zone, but throughout the park, which is concerning because I think one of the presenters mentioned that they were feeling very positive when we annexed the Wasaga area that was there, and that they would be subjective to bylaws that existed within our community. So I'll just say that I, again, really appreciate the information today, and I think there's a lot to think about and consider. But the one point that is very important for me to have clarified is that many have indicated say no to this application. And my understanding is on the part of council is a no to the application just is another part of the process that the landowner then could appeal and continue the process. So I would just like some clarification around that as well when we get to staff. Thank you.
All right, our Director of Planning, Trevor?
Through your worship, so obviously a staff report hasn't been prepared. It's not before you today. A staff report will be coming forward with recommendations. Council is the decision maker, so it'll be your preview that decide whether or not to approve the application or to refuse it, or with what other conditions. The applicant does have the ability to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal a decision, and the only other parties that have a right to appeal directly to the OLT is specified persons, which is generally the Minister, County of Simcoe, and some of the other outside agencies. My understanding is that third-party appeals have been now removed for zoning bylaw amendments as per Bill 185.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just thinking, before I go to the remainder of council for comments or questions for clarity, perhaps we should answer the questions that we have before us, because that may create more questions for council. So if we could then look to Trevor to lead us in getting the answers to the questions we've heard so far that we can answer. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't hear an answer to your question this morning, it's because we'll be working on that, but we will ensure that if you give your name and contact information to the clerk, that you will get answers on these questions that we don't answer here this morning. Trevor?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I've tried to keep the notes. They're not perfect notes, so to your point, if there's something here that we didn't touch upon, we will do so. The last lady was asking about would there be, if the property was rezoned, would they get any other notice if there was another use that would otherwise be permitted? If the zoning is approved and it gives the full suite of range of permitted uses, then there would not be any need for another public meeting because the zoning would allow the right, the use by right. What it would mean is they would have to go through council for site plan approval, and I think that was already spoken to in the PowerPoint presentation for the actual use that's being proposed, which is the tent and trailer campground. One of the gentlemen asked what is the meaning of notwithstanding. Notwithstanding is a fancy word for despite. So what notwithstanding means in a zoning bylaw is the same thing as saying, if notwithstanding the zoning bylaw of 6 hectares, you're allowed 5 hectares. It's the same thing as saying, despite the zoning bylaw typically requiring 6 hectares, for this property, it's 5 hectares. So that's what despite means. He was asking, is that spot zoning? Well, it is a site-specific. Sorry, am I yelling? I apologize.
That's fine. That's better.
I'll try to use my inside voice. So, so we're good now? Okay. So the gentleman asked if this is spot rezoning. It is a site-specific application for rezoning. So yes, it is doing a spot zoning, and that is something that is commonplace, as council knows, under the Planning Act. I don't really wish to get into the discussion about the lady who was the paralegal speaking to the matters that's before that tribunal, because that's not really something that I'm knowledgeable about. One of the questions that was raised by the joint PowerPoint presentation was why the land use designations and the zonings appear to be the opposite. To their point, that arrangement has been in effect since 2003. Why it hasn't been corrected, I don't know. But what I can say is that, and I believe this has been provided to to that lady already, I stand to be corrected, is that your official plan has a policy, and it's 19.2.1.2, that says not all lands that are it is intended that not all lands be zoned at the outset for the uses indicated on Schedule A of the official plan, but rather the bylaw will recognize existing uses and be of a restrictive nature. I wasn't here in 2003. I don't know why the council at that time chose the designations and the zonings they did. If it was simply because the official plan gives them the ability not to rezone lands for a use, that may have been the case. I'm not sure, but there is a policy in the official plan that allows you as council not to necessarily rezone lands based on the underlying official plan designations. There was a question or a comment made that because of that, the official plan or the zoning bylaw is not in conformity with the Planning Act. Actually, there's a section in the Planning Act for those residents, it's section 24.4, which basically says that if no appeal to the zoning bylaw occurs, then the zoning bylaw is basically deemed to conform with the official plan. So regardless of whether the designation is residential and they put a commercial or vice versa, once that zoning bylaw is in effect and is not under appeal, there is a remedy exactly for that type of situation, which is section 24.4 of the Planning Act. There was some other comments that were made about building permits and past things that are going on with bylaw enforcement. I'm not sure if the general manager would like to speak to that or not. And there was a whole host of other questions that we'll have to get through as part of the staff report.
Thank you very much. Mr. General Manager, any comments?
Thanks, Your Worship, and through you to Council and those present here today. Maybe just a couple of things. I have asked the building inspectors to take regular drives through the park and identify some of the more egregious concerns. You know, it is true that over the course of several decades now, there's been a lot of construction in there without building permits. And I can tell you that we have been in there and we have asked people to make alterations to things that we believe not to be safe. And in every instance where we've done that, the work has happened to make it safe. I did, seeing some of the pictures in the presentation earlier, I did ask one of our inspectors to go into the site. The picture that you see of that partially demolished building, we've taken action on. First that I become aware that that building was in that state. So we're in there now, and we're promised that the demolition will be complete by the end of today, and the site will be cleaned up tomorrow. So to date, we've issued 11 demolition permits. They were issued back in April. I do not have a count as to how many of those demolitions have actually occurred yet. Typically, after we issue a demolition permit, the holder of the permit would call us and let us know when they're complete, and we go out and inspect. So as for enforcement under the zoning bylaw, I think it's important to point out that what we have at our disposal for enforcing zoning is provincial offenses. Our particular bylaw does not have any Part 1 offenses, so we have no ability to go out on our zoning bylaw and write tickets. Therefore, we're left, our only means of enforcement is to lay information before the court, get a summons, press charges, and I can tell you that bylaw staff is working on, they've been monitoring trailers as they show up. They are working on the informations to lay the charges, but we're typically looking at 4 to 6 months right now before we get a first appearance. So it's not the quick remedy that I think everybody would like us to have, but unfortunately, for example, you see us using amps in town for other bylaws, but there's no language in the Planning Act right now that enables the town to designate a bylaw under the planning that's passed under the Planning Act in our AMPS bylaws. So unfortunately, it is only that of provincial offenses in Part 3 that we have at our disposal.
All right. Any questions that haven't been answered will be forthcoming, I'm sure, in writing and available to anyone who leaves their name and address with the deputy clerk. Is that correct? Is there anything else further you wanted to answer today? Trevor?
Yes, Your Worship. There was a comment earlier about the town planning department telling a resident what the land use designation will be in the new official plan, and it was residential. My understanding from speaking to Matt Ellis, who's the senior planner, the lands in the first draft of the official plan are proposed to be designated tourism commercial, not residential, which is basically a continuation of the current land use designation. So what I'm going to have to do is have Mr. Matt Ellis reach out to that individual and just confirm that, but that's my understanding. And also, it will be council to decide either through the official plan review or the West Secondary Plan Review, which coincidentally will both be happening at the same time, what the final land use designations ought to be on the subject lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. All right, now we'll go back to members of council, and I believe next was Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Thank you very much, everybody who came today and to share the information. I can't imagine the stress that you've been under in these 2 years, especially with housing insecurity and some of these issues that you've brought forward. I'm also very surprised and disappointed that, it's been a year ago since your last presentation to us, and to still hear that some of these matters are going on in regards to the owner's absolute disregard of any of our rules, regulations, bylaws, instruction from staff. It truly makes my blood boil. So I would like to be clear, because our council was clear for those in attendance last year. We were quite clear in regards to direction on how this matter should be handled, that it was a sensitive matter, that it required our immediate action in order to protect our residents, because in my personal opinion, I feel this is a greedy owner who doesn't care about any rules, wants to only maximize the value of their land, and are trying to convert to short-term accommodations to avoid the landlord-tenant board and instead be able to really do what they want. And our staff are aware that this has been going on for decades, and this needs to stop today. No more.
I would also like to ask, because I'm not privy to the details of the rules, now I know obviously this will come forward again after your staff report that you mentioned, Trevor, in regards to the request for the zoning change, but Madam Clerk, are we able to put that on the floor today and vote for this matter in regards to the zoning at all and put these people's minds at ease potentially?
Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your passion here. I truly do. But if you would just now hold your applause until we get through this, we would appreciate it very much. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a planning matter under the Planning Act. It is essential that we follow the process outlined by the province within that legislation that requires the recommendation report to be brought back to Council. This meeting is simply to receive comments from the public and allow them to address the application before Council. I'll defer to the CAO if he'd like to elaborate.
No, thank you. My voice won't allow me to elaborate. I would concur with Nicole, and I would caution Council not to share too much of your opinions. That time will come when the recommendation report comes forward.
Yeah, I'll just add, what's important for Council to understand here, as in any planning matter, is that we listen, we ask the questions that we require for clarity, we let staff go back, do what it is they need to do to come back to us with a recommendation, and at that time, Council has the opportunity to then deal with the matter. It's important that we allow staff to do their job and to come back to us so as that we do not influence in any way, shape, or form whatever recommendation staff may come back with. Whether we agree with that recommendation or we don't agree with that recommendation at that time is entirely in our hands and entirely up to us as a council to agree with it and move it forward, or to disagree with it and stop it at that point. And then let the process after that within the Planning Act, appeals, etc., take place. What I would hate to see happen today, as we move forward with more comments and questions, is that Council do anything to jeopardize any part of the process, because what I believe Council wants here is what is best for our citizens, and if that is truly the case, and I believe it is, then we absolutely should let the process carry its way through. So I just carry on with that caution. Madam Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick follow-up then. Trevor, when would you foresee that report coming forward to Council, please?
Through your worship, I think to be fair to the applicant and their agent, they ought to be given an opportunity to prepare. Normally what we would do is a response matrix. So we would ask the proponent to prepare their response matrix, and then we would prepare our response matrix. So it's really on it's really going to be on the applicant to decide how quickly they want to respond to us in order for us to complete our report. So realistically, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 months out. But if it's ready to come forward quicker than that, Your Worship, if we have a response matrix from the owner's agent, we'll certainly do that too.
All right. Next is Councillor Ego.
Thank you, and through your worship, really I just wanted to say as well that I really appreciate the work that has gone in by the residents here today, and the time and resources and the research you've done. It's amazing. I do have a question, actually. I believe it was Richard. I just need a visual. If I understood it correctly, was this last weekend or recently were kind of weekend trailers, I guess is what I saw in my head, brought in for a couple of days. That's what I thought I heard, so I would love some clarification on that.
I don't know if it was specifically this weekend. I think what you heard and what you've seen, and I have a question on this as well, is that although the particular piece of property 101 Cedar Grove is zoned for residential, they have begun and have been bringing in trailers for seasonal rentals. As a matter of fact, I think in one picture you've seen a sign up that's saying seasonal rentals, although it's not zoned for that. So clearly a violation of the Planning Act currently.
Thank you. That's what I really wanted clarified. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ego. Next is Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think at this time I would only be reiterating what my colleagues have said, and I've had my questions answered by staff, so I'll pass.
Thank you very much. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Again, thanks to the residents for their comments today. Please don't let my questions be indicative of any way I may or may not vote on this. I have two questions, both for Trevor. Does the current RM zoning allow for any seasonal camping trailers? In the presentation, it has modular / mobile homes as a permitted use, and I just need some clarity around that.
Through your worship, I'm actually going to handle that one off to Mr. Watt, because Mr. Watt is the planner assigned, and undoubtedly I might say something that was incorrect, and he has more direct knowledge of the file. Thank you.
All right, Cameron.
Thank you to the councillor for that question. So for the purpose of answering that specific question, we would defer to the definition section of the zoning bylaw. The primary residential use within the RM zone, as you've stated, is the modular home park. The way the definition reads is, shall mean a parcel of land under single or condominium ownership which has been planned and improved for the placement of mobile and modular homes for non-transient use, together with ancillary facilities.
Non-transient.
So then for clarity, modular home, a travel trailer is not a modular home. Is that correct?
Non-transient.
Through your worship, and again, when we get into the technicalities of definitions, we would defer to modular home. If you would like me to read the definition, I surely can. I've got it in front of me here.
Please do.
So the definition for modular home, pardon me, I want to get too close here. Sorry about that. Modular home shall mean a prefabricated building equipped for year-round occupancy and containing therein facilities for cooking, as well as sanitary facilities, including a flush toilet and a shower or bathtub, and placed on a finished or permanent foundation. The construction of a modular home shall conform to the Ontario Building Code Act as amended, and shall maintain the appearance and character of traditionally constructed single detached dwelling units, particularly distinguished by a peaked hip or similar roof line. The definition shall not include a mobile home.
Thank you very much. Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Watt, this might also be for you, maybe not. If that's the case, if the zoning application is granted, do the modular homes then become illegal into the zoning if it's zoned the next way?
Through your worship, in a scenario where if there is a use that is currently legally operating on the property and the zoning bylaw changes and that use is no longer legally allowed, it becomes legal non-conforming, meaning it's grandfathered. So if there's an existing use on the property currently that would meet the definition of what's allowed in the current zone, and then council or a municipality changes the zone, and that change of zone doesn't no longer permit that use, it's still permitted, it's just that it's a legal non-conforming use of the land.
May I? Thank you, Your Worship. Trevor, if that's the case, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, if you have a legal non-conforming dwelling and that owner, per se, tries to sell or exit that and a new person attempts to come in, does that become permittable, or is that because it's illegal, does that make so that transaction cannot happen?
Through your worship, I'm certainly not a paralegal nor am I a lawyer, but I would suggest that legal nonconformity travels with the land. So if you owned a piece of property and you had a legal nonconforming use and then I wanted to purchase it for the same identical use, that's permitted under Section 34(9) of the Planning Act.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Great questions. Thank you, Councillor. All right. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Timms.
Could I just have a little clarification on that? So if legal non-conforming is appropriate, is that final decision made up to the landowner, whether they're going to allow people to stay on the property as legal non-conforming?
Through your worship, I don't know how to answer that question because I'm not the owner of the land and I don't know all the case law. This is an interesting scenario because the property is owned by Party A, but the residents are on Party A leasing it when they own their own units. So I don't have an answer to that question because there's a lot of case law on such things, and there could be case law that deals with that specifically. But I wouldn't want to give council advice on that without the research.
And I think that's fair, because the uniqueness is that the property is owned by the Barnes family. It is leased by the tenants, the mobile home owners. And so I think it's difficult for staff to answer that because it's a unique situation. It's not like an R1 zoned residential property where it's pretty straightforward. All right, next was Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I'm somewhat confused with the error that is on the official plan, where the parcel that was to be tourism commercial was reversed with the residential component, and you indicated that that's carrying forward in the new official plan, that would still be tourism commercial. I believe that's what you said, so I would like some clarification there, because I would think that we want to rectify that if it's ongoing and continuing, and it had been reversed, that we would want it reversed back to what was intended for the official plan update. And I'll just make one more comment and let our Director of Planning attend, but the other thing that Mrs. De Palma said about the fact that a landlord would sell a modular home to an individual and then at that time, may or may not had known the intention of reversing the planning, but then offering $3,000 compensation. I would somewhat agree that that is highly unethical, if not worse. So, but anyhow, it was certainly a concern on my part. Thank you.
Trevor?
Through your worship, so I won't speak to the last part of it, but in regards to the error, I guess there's a differences of opinion. I think what is an error and what's not an error. What I said was that as per your official plan, per section 19.2.1.2, council has the ability not to rezone lands despite what the underlying official plan designation may be. And you have that authority because your official plan gives you the opportunity to just recognize whatever land uses were in at that time, or not to rezone it until such time as you're satisfied that the lands could be used for an example, residential. So example, you can choose not to rezone the lands, or you can pre-zone lands and use a holding symbol. For whatever the reason, the council of the day chose not to use a holding symbol. They chose to rezone the lands for something that the official plan designation would have otherwise allowed by right. I don't understand as to why the council chose to do that, but that's what they did, and you have the authority to do so. So if you have lands that are designated commercial and you wish to, in your wisdom, put a residential zone on it, you may do so, because your official plan allows you that option. What I also said was, notwithstanding whether it was an error intention or not, under section 24(4) of the Planning Act, once that zoning bylaw has gone through its appeal period and is now in full force and effect, it is deemed to conform to the official plan regardless of what the designation may or may not be. So that is the remedy. So if the council of the day chose to put a residential zone on a commercial property, that's their prerogative, they can do that. If after that appeal period is in effect, no one can come back and say that the property doesn't have conformity with the official plan because Section 24(4) of the Planning Act has a specific provision that says it's deemed to conform. Is it usual for a council to put a designation on and then not have the corresponding zoning? No, it is not. But can it be done? Yes, it can, and it obviously has.
Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
So just to follow up, like through the whole presentations that we're referring to this parcel is residential modular, but on the official plan, it's tourism commercial. So how can it be both at the same time? Like, I understand your explanation, but the bottom line, it seems to be quite a contradiction.
And I agree, Councillor, but I think staff have been clear. It was the decision of the current council, and because no one appealed it, it is such as it is. My question, I guess, would be, can future councils reverse that?
Through your worship, yes. You can choose not to rezone it if and when the application comes back forward. We've already had that discussion. And council can choose to continue on the tourism accommodation designation that's shown in your first draft or not. And you can also choose to redesignate it to something else as part of the West Secondary Plan or not through that process as well.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So just in follow-up then, when we got a deputation a year ago, staff could have brought forward and council could have changed that designation prior to today, just on those lands, not with conjunction with the entire update of the official plan.
Through your worship, council could have directed that we do a town-initiated official plan and zoning bylaw amendment on the Barnes's property specifically, had that one, if council wanted to do that. I believe what we chose to do is not to do that and do it as part of the official plan review, which is currently underway, or the secondary plan and as part of the comprehensive zoning bylaw, if you don't wish to have it rezoned to something that is actually designated for in the current official plan.
So just follow up again. All that being said, I don't think the official plan was going to come to council with the designations exactly as they are today. There was no recommendation for a change. So we would have had to picked up on that as a council and said, no, we don't like the official plan like this. We want that changed.
Through your worship, that's correct. And that can be said of all the properties in Wasaga Beach. They can all be subject to your change.
Just for the record, I do see a couple of hands up in the audience. Unfortunately, we're at a part in the meeting where those questions and comments were through that process. And again, I want to reiterate, folks, it's imperative that we follow proper process here in order to make sure that this is fair and transparent to everybody. So unfortunately, I can't take your questions, so I'll save you that exercise. All right, any other questions or comments from members of council? All right, I just want to a couple of clarifications for me. One of the slides that we've seen earlier of this particular section, are we able to pull it up? Do we have that still available? Well, it was the first presentation and it showed the section of residential. And in that residential, we've seen a couple of photos. We've seen one of a sign that said that this area is for seasonal use. So we've seen another one that showed a tent. And I also want to be clear, a tent is not considered a mobile home, correct? Although it does have a peaked roof. And we also seen, thank you, and within that, so there we see that, so as of January 2024, that indicates that. I just wanted to, so to be clear, that sign, A, is a sign that's against, I'm sure it contradicts our sign bylaw, but B, it indicates something that is illegal because the zoning is not in place in order to have those seasonal campgrounds. And I'm looking to our general manager. Is that correct in both cases?
Yes, and actually, earlier during the slide, I actually sent a text to the bylaw department, and if that sign is on town property, it'll be coming down today.
All right, thank you. Well, even if it's on residential property, right? I mean, we don't allow signs.
That's correct.
No matter where it is. All right, thank you. And then in the background of that picture, I'm seeing what looks like maybe an Airstream type trailer. It's not a mobile home, and I'm assuming that particular trailer is in this residential area currently. I'm seeing, thank you. All right, and could we just flip through the pictures there slowly? There's another one. Is that trailer in the residential area currently? All right. Okay, no, I don't, thank you very much. I just need a nod of heads, okay? Can we keep going? Another one, different trailer, same area, thank you. Next one. That non-mobile home sitting there is in the residential area? Okay, thank you. Next one. All right. All right, here's a good one. So I think I heard that we had ordered these trees to be removed, and this was last year? A few months ago. So we ordered these trees removed, so we decided we cut the limbs off the trees and we considered that removed. So my question is, when we issue an order, do we have a time frame on these orders, in which case we go back and say, hey, you haven't completed this?
I'll take that, Your Worship. So I don't have specific knowledge of this particular occurrence, but typically when we issue an order or a notice, it would have a time for compliance. You know, and we have to allow for a 5-day service period typically, unless we're able to actually serve the notice in person. But yeah, when we give a date, if it's not complied with, there's another level of enforcement that would kick in. If they were unsafe, we would take them down ourselves. But again, I don't have detailed knowledge of this particular occurrence, but that's how that would normally unfold.
So, and I'm not trying to put staff on the hot seat here, don't take me wrong, I'm just trying to have clarity. In this particular case, do we know, were these trees ordered to be taken down because they were unsafe? I'm sorry? So the decaying trees, we deemed them to be unsafe, they needed to be removed, I'm assuming? Sorry, you want to come ahead and join us, Rachel? Thank you.
So through you, Your Worship, I want to stay away from the word unsafe because there is a portion of, this was prior to AMP's implication, first off, so it was under POA, so we would issue property standards orders for it. If it was deemed as unsafe, like the immediate health and safety of an individual, then it would be an emergency order and it would need to be taken down right away. We did get professional opinions about this. They were not deemed as that, so a regular order was sent with a compliance date that has not passed yet.
So are these ash trees?
Yes.
Okay, so they were coming down because they were decaying because of the ash borer beetle, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And we wouldn't deem that then to be unsafe?
Not immediate health and safety of an individual.
And so then the next question I guess I have, and again, I want to be clear, I'm not putting staff on the hot seat because I understand how difficult your jobs are and how well you do them, so I want to be clear on that. But is this something that would normally be acceptable when we issue an order to remove a tree?
This occurrence is not complied with yet.
Okay. All right, can we flip forward, Chris, please, to, perfect, you're reading my mind. When we issue a demolition permit, do we have a timeline on demolition, and are there any safety requirements by the town with respect to demolition and how it's done and protection for life and safety around the area?
Thanks, Your Worship. When a demolition permit is issued, there's 6 months for whoever the permit holder is to commence the work. At the end of 6 months, and City View would give us a prompt that 6 months has passed, and we would check to see if any of the work has been completed. And if it hasn't, then we would notify the permit holder that, we're in a position at that point to revoke their permit, and direct them to, tell us what their intent is, whether they're going to fulfill the obligation of the demolition permit. As per demolition guidelines, We don't, outside of ensuring that utilities are disconnected. And I can tell you in the case of these demolition permits, we also put a condition in there that we wanted to make sure that our municipal water was protected, so that, you know, we wanted determination of any sanitary connections and any water connections to be done to the town standards. So, but we don't typically place any specific guidelines around how the demolition occurs. Certainly, should we go to a site and have concerns, then we would address them at that time.
All right, so might I suggest that we have a real good hard look at the demolition permits. I mean, I think it's very important that if we're going to issue a demolition permit, that the commencement I get, if you've got 6 months to commence that demolition, fine. But once it's commenced, I think we need to have some pretty strict guidelines around how long you have to do that demolition, and also some strict guidelines around, you know, health and safety and safety of life and limb. I mean, I'm looking at pictures here where kids could be in there playing with broken glass, nails, screws, you name it. You know, the building is clearly not structurally sound as it sits there, and if it sat like that for days, and I'm using this just as an example of something that we absolutely need to look at, and need to look at very quickly, because I would argue that if someone gets hurt here, someone's going to be coming back to us and saying, you know, what's your guidelines around how long it takes to demolish somebody or something. And the other thing is, there are folks out there who could very well, you know, their neighbors would have to deal with looking at a demolition for months. So could you just carry on? Chris, okay, this other one on the right. So the left is what it looked like, and the right is what it looked like after it was removed, and that's what was left, and left there for quite some time. Again, I think a safety issue. Next pictures, please. Okay, next. I think that's it. Okay. So I just needed some clarity around some of these rules, regulations, and bylaws, so as that we know as we move forward. It's pretty clear to me that campgrounds, we need to have a good hard look at campgrounds in general. I can tell you that I have been to this particular campground and 2 others within our municipality, and when I drive through those locations, I see a plethora of what I would think are health and safety issues. I don't know how our fire trucks will get in there if something was to happen in many cases, and you know, these are things that need to be dealt with. However, not related specifically to this meeting today. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and the residents. I want you to know that council's listening. We've heard you, but we do have a process we have to follow. And although I understand the frustration, and you think that perhaps, you know, this is a done deal, I can absolutely assure you that council has not made any decision on this at this point, because it hasn't come to us with any recommendation from our staff. And when it does, we'll take everything into account, and we'll make the decision that we believe is best for our community as a whole. I'm confident in that. But I want you to know that you're here. We're grateful you're here. And we want to thank the planning folks on behalf of the Barnes family as well for being here and presenting. And before I end, is there anything that you wish to add, or anything you want to answer specifically? No? All right. So if there's any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Belanger?
Just one, Your Worship, and that was, it's been my experience around town that during demolition or anything else, that fencing has always been erected. And I can certainly understand that most companies would do that because of liability. And I guess if it wasn't done, I would want clarification of whether or not the town has any liability in that. But I was very surprised to see a building half demolished without fencing around it. So I think the mayor was thinking that as one of the safety issues, but I just say it's been the experience that, you know, when we look at a number of areas around town where, matter of fact, not only did we insist on the I think the fencing, but the fencing had fallen down, and then through bylaw, we had the fencing put back up. So I'm just not understanding when we say that there's no specific rules around that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Belanger, and thank you everyone for being here today. Before we end, I just want to make it clear that if you want to receive further information and you want the consultants to respond to you, that you please fill out a letter of consent with our deputy clerk, so as that you can consent to us allowing and giving your information to the consultants in order to be in touch with you. It's part of the Privacy Act, and we want to make sure we're following that as well. And if you're wanting any written notice or any notice of results, that you please, again, leave your name and contact information with the deputy clerk before you leave today.
City Council wants to make clear that the proposed amendment to that bylaw change wasn't being approved at that meeting. They were simply there to hear the staff report from the developers and the concerned citizens. As you watched, an overwhelming number of citizens are opposed to this amendment, but ultimately it is up to City Council to decide if that residential property will be turned into a campground. Since the bylaw amendment hasn't been approved, if you are a citizen of Wasaga Beach or live in the area, you are still able to voice your concerns to your ward councillor to tell them how you feel about this potential development. Merci for watching, and we'll see you down the river.